Hello, my name is GiBi, and welcome to the Horror Homestead. Apparently, I'm not the only one who's been answering questions about FNAF recently. We have our good buddy John FNAF, who actually got to sit down for an interview with Steel Wool Studios, which is just absolutely incredible. I love the fact that the community has reached this point where we can actually have who I think is the de facto representative YouTuber of the entire FNAF community actually being able to sit down with the people who are making these games. This interview is an hour and 20 minutes long, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch the whole thing. You're not going to watch me watch the whole thing, one, because that would be incredibly boring, and two, because obviously you should be watching the original video instead. You should be watching John's video. This is just going to be my comments, my live reactions to all the things that are going on, and I'm going to clip it up to all the interesting parts, so I hope you enjoy.
Right now, I'm currently at Steel Wool Studios headquarters, sitting with Jason Topolsky from Steel Wool Studios.
As I really like the pizzeria simulator.
Yeah.
I love everything that he had done before that, and each one's so unique and different, but I always liked Scott's sense of humor.
Oh my gosh.
You know,
Helpy.
And then we get to Helpy, yeah.
Yes. Helpy's humor is so good in that game.
Okay, so, and I don't want to harp on this. So, as someone who has recently started a podcast, there is this awkward phase of talking over each other, where one person's saying their thing and you're saying your thing. And if they're taking a long time to get to what they're saying, you kind of want to, like, help them finish your thought, right? So, like, this guy Jason is like, oh, it was so funny. And then FNAF is jumping in because that's a natural part of conversation to add on and be like, yeah, Helpy was so funny. That is how a normal, real conversation works. When you're doing something that is being recorded for an audience, something like a podcast, you really need to fight the instinct to always do that because you want to let the person finish their own thought for them, right? This fear of having dead air needs to be overcome so that the other person gets to actually say their thoughts. This isn't a podcast, this is an interview, and obviously this is the first time that John has spoken to a really, big representative of the franchise that he covers, and so it makes sense that he is making this sort of, like, newbie interviewer mistake. But especially in an interview, you want the person who you're interviewing to be the one doing 99% of the talking. We don't need John to say that Helpy was funny. We want to hear what Jason says is funny. When you're in any sort of professional or technical field, the first thing you do is you notice other people making all the same mistakes you do, that like you're self-conscious about. And so I'm wondering how much of this interview is going to end up being John trying to finish Jason's sentence, which is, again, entirely natural, exactly what I would do, but something that with more practice and skill and with doing this more and more, hopefully John gets a lot of interviews in the future, but hopefully it's something that he can, like, overcome. So I guess we'll see what happens.
What comes first when making a game?
Really, the first thing when we hit any new title is a high concept. What do we want this game to be? Every one of them's been a little different. Sometimes we'll just go straight into script.
I don't know why, like, I was listening to that so intently. I was like, is he going to say that the story matters the most, or is he going to say that something else matters the most? And then he just goes like, oh yes, this was made the same way that all video games are made. I'm like, I don't know what I was expecting there.
So what about Help Wanted? Like, what was the first thing that you did, like, you thought of in Help Wanted? Was it the story or
the original Help Wanted? We only
John
had,
has the same thought that I had.
I think we had 7 people, and by the time we finished Help Wanted, we had like 12 people working on it.
That's crazy.
We started that saying, hey, we want to make the original FNAF 1 in VR. And that was the thing. That was the thing that started it and sold it.
There was no, like, tapes, glitch trap. It was just remaking.
So yeah, this is like the exact same instinct that I'm having listening to this, where I'm like, I want to know the lore, right? Like, I imagine myself, I'm sure a lot of people do this. I'm like, okay, what would I do if I got to make my FNAF game? What would I do if I was sitting in the writer's room? I'm writing my fan fiction and making it canon, just like everybody dreams of doing, right? And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, this is obviously how it goes in my head, where you sit around and you have a writer's room and you're trying to figure all this out. And for Jason to just be like, we made it like you make every video game. You just start with the concept first. They treat it like it's a video game before they treat it like it's something to make YouTube videos about, which is the objectively correct way to do it. It's just not the way that I think, and that's another reason that I think that a lot of people who are into the community for the reasons that I am and that you probably are if you're watching this, and that John is, and probably a lot of other FNAF tubers. Where are they? They're back there. There's a reason we shouldn't be making the games, and it's because we would make it for theorists, and obviously the game should be made for the wider audience that actually plays them. So I'm really liking the answers this Jason guy is giving.
He really wanted to make part 1 VR.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, you know, we're going to also do part 2.
Yeah.
And let's do part 3.
Yep.
And let's do what we can for part 4,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
without it being, you know, so tied into sound.
Right.
What?
Because in VR, everything is just way more impactful.
Oh
and
my gosh.
way
Okay,
more.
wait, that actually makes a lot of sense. Okay, so when Help Wanted came out, it's only FNAF 1, 2, 3, and then like parts of 4, and a lot of people thought that there was a serious lore reason for that. But Jason is saying that they would have made it in VR, but because FNAF 4's gameplay is mostly based on sound, right? You gotta listen at the door. It wouldn't translate the same, I guess. So that was entirely a technical thing, not a lore thing. And so, again, I love this. I love how this is making me, and hopefully by extension you, re-examine the way that we look at the games for lore, right? Why wasn't FNAF 4 included in Help Wanted? It's not because of an in-lore universe reason. It's not because they ran out of time and had a short development cycle. It's because it would have been difficult to implement the gameplay in VR. So that's one of those things that, like, we shouldn't look at that for lore. And I always rally about this in my theories, where I'm like, not everything exists for lore purposes. Sometimes it's a limitation of the medium. I talked about this in my QA video, but someone asked me, like, why does Henry decide Mike wants to die at the end of Pizzeria Simulator? And that's not a lore thing. We're not supposed to read into Henry's character. That's just a limitation of the way Scott tells the story, that we don't get to hear Mike's thoughts and Mike's inner monologue. So Henry has to be Scott telling the viewer, like, yeah, Mike's okay with dying right now. So, like, you shouldn't read too far into something like that. And again, okay, so we shouldn't read too far into FNAF 4's exclusion from Help Wanted, because it's purely a technical thing. I love this. I really hope that other people get to interview Jason, or that FNAF gets to talk to them again. You know, maybe after each release, John can go to their office and talk to them. That would be amazing. I would love that.
When it came to Steel Wool, we didn't have that kind of experience at all.
Mm-hmm.
That was new to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, coming from...
All right, so I don't want to harp on this, but I will say again, like, John going, or yeah, to indicate that he's listening, right? That's something you would do in a conversation, but that's something you should try not to do in an interview, because we're here to really just listen to Jason's answer. So, and again, this is not to criticize John. I love John. Maybe by his second or third interview, this is something that he'll have overcome. I think that there's constructive criticism, and it should be that, like, you want to let the other person talk, as opposed to, like, being mean. Do not be mean.
I very specifically remember watching Daco.
My gosh, yeah.
Because
Okay.
we were watching some of that stuff, you know, as we were working on the IP.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, the YouTuber base is huge.
Yeah.
Lore videos, all this stuff. Like,
yeah.
we really needed to get into it and expose ourselves to everything.
Right.
The idea that they expose them, first of all, funny way of saying that, the idea that they watch a lot of the YouTubers, especially when they were starting out, is really cool. And, like, I love that back in the day, Scott would pay close attention to the community, and it's this whole thing. He would always, like, answer the criticisms from the previous game into the next game. Very cool. I am partially worried by things like, let's say a lower level staff employee, of them getting invested in one YouTuber's interpretation of the story, right? If they're like, okay, I want to put something in the game that Daco would appreciate. Oh, I want to put in a lore nod because I really like Rye Toast's interpretation of this character. I think that kind of stuff should not influence the games. I think the game should be a pure artistic expression of the intentions behind the artists themselves. With that said, again, going back to what Scott used to do, which is that he would listen to feedback to incorporate it into later games, I'm glad they do that. I'm just worried about, again, not someone like Jason, but someone who might have less power, but also has the ability to slip things into the game that other people might not know about, or might not approve, or might just influence their thinking. I'm worried that they might get influenced by someone who has a large audience and a loud voice, as opposed to someone who has gooder ideas.
And then COVID happened. We shipped everybody's computers out to them. Everybody had to work at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was
It's a big
really
change.
hard to
Yeah.
like get around.
Right.
You know, how do you do when we were doing, you know, like Help Wanted 1,
Mm-hmm.
we could all watch somebody play in a
Right.
headset and then snicker at them through a window and be like, "Hey, come over here, come over here."
Aw.
They fell over. They hurt themselves. It's like they're crying. Right. So we couldn't get any of those responses for seeing how people would react to it.
Right. Right.
It was really
Right.
That makes a
interesting.
lot of
It's a big
sense,
change.
actually.
People think about that a lot when they think of like when making a game.
Yeah, I
and
guess that
specifically
means that like QA or quality assurance QA testing was like minimal or lower on security breach, which makes a lot of sense if you look at security breach.
Since then, we're still 100% remote. We have
Yeah.
you
which
know,
is a good thing and a bad thing, right?
Interesting.
Like you
Yes.
can hire.
we've definitely learned how to hone that skill
Right.
of distance.
So how did you take what you learned and implement that? Like what you learned from security breach and implement it?
Okay, so
into
wait, he
your
said
future?
that the biggest thing he learned was how to work from home, how to do remote working. That's like the biggest lesson from security breach is they learned how to do that. Interesting, because I'm not sure if on the consumer side there's any quality difference. It's not like, oh, they're getting the games out so much faster now that they're working from home, or oh, the team size is significantly larger because there's no overhead office space. Obviously, they're in an office somewhere. So I'm not sure why that was the biggest lesson learned from security breach, if it hasn't, at least as far as we know, been fruitful in other endeavors as far as their development of games is concerned. See, that's the kind of, like, I would love if John followed up with that question and said, like, how has working from home improved the output of future games? Maybe he's going to ask that. I don't know.
So how did you take what you learned and
Yeah,
implement
here we go.
that? Like what you learned from security breach and implement it into your future games?
How'd you
As
take
soon
working
as we
from
were
home,
able to
or how'd
start
you
meeting
take?
in person again
Uh-huh.
and getting on flights and everything,
Mm-hmm.
it was so important to meet, have big kickoffs, all the leads,
Right.
all departments, all leads, everybody to get on the same page,
Yeah.
and not just be on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
And then we'll do like day-long presentations, people showing what they're working on, get everybody
Really?
on board. Like, here's what pre-prod has done up to this point. Here's the story to this point,
Wow.
wherever we're at. And then really get everybody involved in a nice, fun, in-person kickoff.
Yeah.
you
That's
know?
awesome.
Kickoff,
Which is-
though.
Which helps a lot with the
Invaluable.
development. Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
invaluable.
I think.
I think a lot of people, sorry to cut you off, John, a lot of people were criticizing security breach because we sort of had this insight into the development where there was feature creep, where they had a plan for the game, and then as the game went on, they come up with a new idea and a new idea and a new idea, which prevented them from polishing older ideas, and these ideas building on top of each other didn't necessarily mesh with the overall vision, so there wasn't a lot of guidance. Again, this is just like the community's theories, I guess, about how security breach was developed. So I'm wondering if they still have that oversight to prevent things like future creep in the future. I'm wondering if, see, again, that's something that I would ask. I wonder how John's going to word it and how Jason's going to interpret it.
This is a really interesting question. Was security breach always the name of security
Whatever. I
breach?
guess we're dropping it.
Did it have a different title?
We had this list of names of what it could be and what it could be and what it could be. And then I think Scott was like, how about security breach? He was like,
Really?
like, he
It
did
was
that
Scott's idea.
Yeah, like
I love
he
that.
did that for Dreadbear as well. We had all these
love
names for
that.
what it could be.
That's
what it could be,
amazing.
and he was
Wasn't
like,
like Frank and Freddy?
There's a great example of like why Scott is invaluable. Having the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, right? Going from Frank and Freddy, which is, I guess that's thematically appropriate, right? But Dreadbear sounds like Fredbear. Oh my god, that's such a great idea. And it's something that like Scott would have come up with because of his familiarity with his characters that maybe the studio wouldn't have. So I do love that. So that makes me wonder, like, what about the concept made Scott think security breach, right? Like, as we know, as we can assume based on the title and the story of the game, the security breach is Gregory being in the Pizzaplex after hours, but I wonder what elements of the original story or concept may have had that title be a better fit for the project that would have made Scott pick it or come up with it over these other ideas. I would love to hear some of those other project names. And that's just because I love hearing stories behind development of artistic endeavors.
we were playing around with,
Yeah.
right, on this list of names.
Right.
And he was like, Dreadbear. What a Dreadbear? And we're like,
Wow.
that's it. That's awesome. Yeah, we're doing
Wow.
that. That's the one.
No
That's
way.
good. Yeah.
Do you remember any of the other names for security breach or no? Can you throw one out there?
I'm trying to.
Thank you,
I
John.
can't remember.
That's
it's like one of
alright.
those, I'd have to pull up the doc.
That's
I
all
want
right.
to say it was like 50 different names.
Wow.
And none of them were as good
As security
as Security Breach. I don't even remember
Wow.
the other ones.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love Security Breach, and I have so much fun
Oh, thank you.
theorizing about that game. Like, especially like the environments. Like something I do in my videos is look at all of the environments in Security Breach, see what stories they're telling in each one. I love doing that. So like how
John's
much
the best
thought
at doing stuff like that.
was put into like the environments in Security Breach? Because
This is his like this is the most important question John could ask for himself.
Little details.
It's a ton.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
When getting into Security Breach and the set being a character, right? The set is its own character,
Right.
And it really
John's
is in
sitting
all
there
of the
like,
Freddy's
did I
games.
waste my entire life?
Every
Am
one
I
of the
just making
pizzerias is its
BS
own
up?
character. And you want to like honor that moving forward.
That's
Looking
awesome.
at Scott's, it's like, hey,
I love this Jason guy. I feel like I can trust him being like the leader of this Steel Wool era.
Right. Freddy's 2 versus Freddy's 1.
I love
right?
this guy.
He's so good at set dressing. It's crazy.
I mean, the Freddy's 3.
Yeah.
Like there's so much going on there with the museum, and it's like, this is so cool.
Yes, I heard this explanation of like FNAF games. It's like you're not seeing something happening in the moment. You're not seeing the pizzeria in its prime. You're seeing a snapshot,
right?
Like a piece of history, like it frozen in time,
right?
And it's telling a story in its own way through the environments. So like with Security Breach, I bet that was a lot of fun to do that. With Security Breach.
In one of the big
That's actually really interesting. One of the interesting things about Security Breach and the story and the timeline is that by the time of the game, there's no staff in the building. It's literally just Vanessa and then a bunch of staff bots. Whereas we know that for most of the existence of the in-universe Pizzaplex, there were human employees. So we're not seeing the Pizzaplex as it existed for most people throughout their time of it existing. I could have worded that better. We're not seeing the Pizzaplex as it existed within the universe. We're seeing like the last week of the Pizzaplex's existence, and it's very different than the way that it was beforehand. Kind of like how John was kind of alluding to in FNAF 1, we're seeing this rotting, like, low budget downfall of this pizzeria that's going to close by year's end, and not the way it was at its most popular. And it very much makes the universe feel lived in. It makes it have a better experience while playing, but it means that theorists have to go through and sort of examine and extract these two different narratives at once from the environment. There's the way it used to be and the way it currently is. And that layer of interpretation makes theorizing funner, more fun, but also harder. And that is just something that's been going on in the FNAF franchise since day one. I wonder if Jason's going to bring up that factor, or if John's going to try to relate it to theorizing.
When I was a kid, and we had like Chuck E. Cheese, right? In Tacoma, Washington, I think I've said this in maybe another interview somewhere, is we had a 2-story Chuck E. Cheese, right? With a balcony that went around and everything, and like ball pits. All our soccer parties were there.
Yeah.
It was like kids' birthdays were there. And it was cool, and it was fun, and we loved it, and it wasn't creepy.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
When we were there as kids, it wasn't creepy.
Right.
I don't know if I agree with that. I was scared of Chucky as a kid.
Yeah.
When we get into Ruin, that's the flip.
Right.
Is we want to see it in a state where, oh yeah, I could see people going here.
Yeah.
And it's popular again.
Yeah.
They've gone through what Fazbear's gone through.
Yes.
And now it is popular. And it's like,
but okay, what's interesting about that is that we never see the Pizzaplex when it is in operation during the day. We only see it overnight. We know from the beginning cutscene that there's this crowd of screaming people during the performance that then Freddy glitches out during. So it's interesting to me that he thinks of the flip side being pre-Ruin and post-Ruin, as opposed to pre-Vanessa getting rid of all the human employees, pre-Ruin and then post-Ruin. Interesting.
So going along with the environments of Security Breach and like the theory videos and looking into every little thing, Brian, the design director, I believe, at Steel Wool, in a previous interview, said that Freiermuth, yes, his favorite Easter egg in Security Breach was something that no one has found yet.
Ooh.
And I think, first, do you know what that is? Do you know what it was? You know what it was?
Cassie moved again.
What was it?
Nobody was talking about, there were certain things people weren't talking about at all.
Right.
And one of them was they weren't, they really weren't talking about, the sewer and the things in the sewer.
Yeah.
And the parts and the notes and
the Afton family that's in the sewer, like the Afton family staff bots. I wonder if there's other things down there that he could be referring to. He's saying the parts. Interesting, because I would think that when that was first discovered, it was like the talk of the town. Like that was one of the first things I heard about Security Breach, was like, oh my god, we get to see this depiction of the Afton family. So I wonder if you can be more specific.
you know, at the time that
multicolored notes.
Yeah, at the time people were
Sticky
talking
note.
about the little post-its down there. Not post-its
Really?
because it's post-its.
Yeah, they're like pieces of paper.
Yeah.
It's weird.
But yeah, at that time nobody was talking about it.
Interesting. So it's something down there.
Yeah, and then you've talked about it in videos too.
I talked about it.
Yes,
I found it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you've talked about where like, no, nobody's even commenting on this.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's why John's the
goat.
GOAT.
I watch one of your videos like, John did it, John got it.
No way.
Yo, absolutely.
That's so cool.
Oh my
I'd
God,
love
I'm keeping
that.
in. You hear that, everyone? I'm just kidding.
No, seriously, he should be really proud.
I like watching YouTubers.
Yeah.
I love watching yours.
Oh,
you
thank
know?
you. Thank you.
Daco.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
MatPat.
Yeah,
Like, it was
yeah.
so great watching everybody to see like who's close, who's
Right.
got this, who
Right.
doesn't.
And does it still feel as exciting as it did when Help Wanted dropped? Like when you were first watching theories and stuff like that?
You know, it's deeper than that now.
Okay.
Because at that time it was like a shock.
Right.
You know, it's
But
like,
then-
oh wow, look at
Right.
everybody.
To go into that a little bit, are you ever shocked that no one has picked up on something that you were trying to put out there? Does seeing how people theorize about your games, specifically maybe Security Breach, does that change how you go about the storytelling in future
I hope
games?
so. I hope.
You know what's
I hope
funny
it does.
is I'll make these comments where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do this thing in YouTuber bait. People are gonna
YouTuber
love it.
bait?
Oh yeah, I
No.
YouTuber bait.
Gosh.
I'm like people
Stop.
are gonna love this. You know,
Don't
and I'm
do
like,
that.
I'm gonna put this thing in here and people are gonna love this. And then you're like, and then if people don't say anything about it, I'm like, oh, I thought it was being like really obvious, but maybe.
Okay, but like, does it mean something, right? Like, okay, you're putting something in as YouTuber bait, but what is the... I forgot I was wearing that. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump scare you. You're putting something in as YouTuber bait. Does it mean something? Or are you just like, oh, I'm asking a question. What does this mean? I want to see what they can come up with. Or are you like, I'm going to introduce this purposeful element to the story, to the game, to see if they pick up on it, right? And I guess one of those ways I would strongly approve of, like, that's awesome. I'm glad they're putting things in there for the people who are paying attention. Whereas the other is just like, okay, I guess. I put this on because I wanted to do a bit where I'd be like, what do you think? And then I forgot it was on, and then I talk with my hands, so that's cool.
It's part of the story. It's part of the lore. It'll be part of the world.
Right.
And it's one of those things like, oh, we should do this thing because people will love it.
You can't
know?
give me an example of one?
No.
Okay, that's fine. I get it.
Yeah,
I get
there's
it.
some. Yeah,
It's got to remain a mystery. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
I-
yeah,
I-
yeah.
Give us
me,
one
like, I don't wanna
tidbit,
know
dude.
everything. You know,
Yeah.
it's
you figure out a lot of stuff, which is great. You know,
John the
you
goat.
do, you do.
oh my
which
gosh,
is really nice.
Aw.
I really like that. You know, I
Aw.
mean, nobody's ever gonna figure out everything.
right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
there's no way.
Right.
Yeah, there's still more games to come. So
Is there?
Yes.
Anyways, so about the little details scattered throughout.
I wonder if he's gonna... No,
I mean,
I would have definitely heard if like he had made the announcement for a new game like the day this video dropped. So I guess they didn't do that. But maybe like John might have seen like a sneak peek at their next thing and not be able to talk about it. That would be so cool.
I don't think there's any secret that we love working with Scott.
You guys work well with him. I
We
think.
really
Love
like
Scott.
working with
Yeah,
him, and
he's
you know
awesome.
we will continue to work with him.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. We'll talk about that a little later.
Okay.
Stay tuned. We'll talk
Okay.
about
Yeah.
future things later.
Okay.
Future games.
So about all of the Easter eggs and details and everything in Security Breach, how do you keep track of everything? Like, I feel like there's so many little stories, so much lore, so much stuff in your games. Like, do you have a big document? Do you have like a book, notebook? Like,
So anything that's script, right?
Yeah.
All in the script, right? So I have everything in the script. Any of like the notes that you find, I have documents of the notes that we
Yeah.
find, you know.
yeah.
And then one of the things that I do personally that nobody will ever see is
Mhm.
is the point of view. So
Okay.
you might have found a note
Yeah.
from somebody talking about like, oh, my kid cried, and you know, it's like
In Security Breach.
in
Yes.
Security Breach, and there's a name, and I'll have
Right.
like names of characters that have posted these things or
Right.
put them in, or you know, that one's like anonymous.
Right.
It's like someone came in, but other ones, it's like, but nobody will ever know the names because they're not meant to be seen. It's just there are points of view.
Interesting.
You know,
Interesting.
it's like, oh, what was this person's role? There's like a thread. There's a thread of some messages that if you kind of put them together,
Right.
You know.
Like I made a video about like the staff meeting. Like there's this
Right.
big staff meeting storyline, and what
Right.
is that about, and where did it take place? And
right?
I mean, don't confirm anything, but
I don't think that that's necessarily what he's saying. I think that Jason's more like, okay, we're going to put a series of 5 sticky notes throughout the building as environmental storytelling, and they don't necessarily line up with a character, right? Like, we didn't make a guy named Jimmy and then give Jimmy a backstory. It's just like, okay, we're writing these 5 from the perspective of the same person, and Jimmy only exists insofar as the messages on the post-it notes exist. And so why can you never truly figure out FNAF? Because the guy who created Jimmy in their head in order to type these post-it notes, write these post-it notes, whatever, didn't give him a story. So there is no, you can't figure out Jimmy's name. Jimmy doesn't have a name. He's a faceless entity, NPC, meant in order to just be the perspective of these sticky notes. And then you can write 15 sticky notes from Timmy, and Timmy is the supervisor of the floor. So you have this arbitrary role of like, okay, this is the supervisor who's like the one filling out this note, right? If there's a whiteboard and it has like the break schedule, somebody wrote the break schedule, and that would be supervisor Robert. Supervisor Robert isn't a character, it's just the perspective of the person who's writing the whiteboard. I think that's very different than the extremely intentional breadcrumbs leading to this staff meeting thing. The staff meeting being where everyone who worked at the Pizzaplex was fired and then replaced by the robots I was talking about earlier. So I think the thing Jason was talking about is very different than what John is now talking about. I think there are different layers of intention on the part of the developer.
Do you know if there's any mysteries about Security Breach that have not been solved yet?
Yes.
There are?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
No, this is gonna send me on a hunt. So there's things in
Do
the
it,
game
bro.
that you purposely put there that no one has really picked up on yet.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the thing is that there are things that are, maybe not paid off yet.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's what I wanted to hear, guys. That's why I'm not making my
that
video.
may
That's why I
happen
didn't
in
make a
the
sequel to my video.
future, and then things might make sense. Like, do you ever watch?
I'm hyped for
watch
that.
Gravity Falls?
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love Gravity
Like
Falls.
Gravity Falls, there's all these clues throughout the whole series.
Right.
And then when you see it happen later, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, that was in episode 2.
Right.
Or, oh my God, there's a picture of Bill. Oh, there's Bill is in the window. It was there
Yeah.
the whole time, right?
Wow.
And as people were figuring out the show, it's one of my favorites. One of my daughter's favorite shows too.
It's a great show.
Yeah, it's so good.
So going off that,
Yeah.
do you think that every question in Security Breach will have an answer one day? Or do you think there will be like mysteries forever? Like that you'll just keep.
I think there will be mysteries forever.
Wow.
It's
about audience interpretation, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can come up with questions about everything in the world.
Right.
Whatever room you're in right now. You can look around and say like, why is this color?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those
don't
are things
say
that
that.
don't have
Don't
answers
say
for
that.
them.
I mean? Like, hey, so these chairs are yellow.
Yeah. Why are they yellow?
Why are they yellow?
They just
Somebody
are.
made them yellow.
But you're thinking so much about this, but not about the giant baby head
Right.
sitting between
Right.
us.
And
Yeah.
I know why that's there.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's like, I know why that's there.
Yeah.
But these yellow chairs.
Right. Why are they yellow?
Who specifically
I wonder if
picked
that's
them?
supposed to be a
And why?
life-size
Why are they
baby.
here in the
If
studio?
that's the real size of the animatronics,
know,
that's terrifying.
Is there something more to it? Where did they come from? I don't know.
So
There's
you're
like,
referencing maybe something like this in Security Breach.
there's so many.
I think John's
possible
getting the wrong
questions.
message from this. I think that when he said there are mysteries that will never be solved, I think he's talking more about like, why is the chair yellow? In universe, there's an answer to why the chair is yellow. Out of universe, when the developers were making the game, there's not. They just decided that chair was going to be yellow. So the mystery that will never be solved is, why did the guy who ordered the chairs for the pizzeria section for the whatever XYZ section of the Pizzaplex, why is that chair color that color? What are the straw colors on the cups that you can find as garbage? And there is no answer to that question because the developers didn't think of an answer to that question when they were making the decision. So that is a mystery that will never be solved. I think that's what he's talking about. John is, for whatever reason, interpreting this as like, there is a meaning to the chairs, to the chair color. I think he's taking this in the exact opposite way as Jason's intending.
Questions that you may never know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
John's taking this as a
I
challenge.
think I like it that
Yeah.
way. I think I'm content with that.
Yeah.
I think audience interpretation is really fun. Like
Yeah.
I made a video recently about like how you can kind of make a theory for anything in this franchise, and it's mostly about what timeline or what theory makes the most sense to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's awesome.
I'm a big
I think
supporter of
something
that.
should remain mysteries.
Yeah.
It's just part of the brand at this point.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
The
one
only
of
way
my-
of not doing that, the alternative to that, of explaining why the chair is yellow, The only franchise that does that is Star Wars. And that's because Star Wars, at its bare essence, is a 2-hour movie. And in a 2-hour movie, there's only so many chairs that can exist. And because Star Wars has existed for 50 years, you have people going in and writing backstories about the chair. And that's not the original creator, and that's not the intention, but it's this, not retcon, it's this post hoc explanation for why the chair is that color and why it's there. Every single background character in every Star Wars movie has a name and a backstory because the expanded universe is so vast. And it's the only thing that's like that. And so the idea that something like that will happen for FNAF is not going to happen. And I think that that's fine, because I think that the value of adding all those backstories to the characters in Star Wars, I don't think that the value is as high as somebody like creating their own world or creating their own character.
My favorites. I love David Lynch, the director, and Twin Peaks has always been one of my favorite, series. And nobody will ever know everything. They just won't.
They won't.
That's just
you just have to be
because David Lynch is
as a storyteller. Right.
Jerk face.
David Lynch gonna put out like a book that explains every little bit? Like no. Yeah,
no, but that's because David Lynch is a jerk, right? Like it's a little different.
Performance, and then said like, do that again, but put an emphasis on this.
Ooh.
That was eerie.
If you could change anything about Security Breach, what would you change? Like whether it's
don't give him ideas, just let him answer,
or anything.
It's funny because it's like, it's tough to look backwards,
when you're looking forward probably so much right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Where if you were able to go back and remake it.
Yeah, like Star Wars.
Star Wars the special editions.
Oh, yeah.
The story there.
That's incredible. It's so funny.
Oh, George wanted different effects. George wanted things to look different.
Yeah.
And so he went and did a pass on the first 3 movies of adding so much additional CG, putting cutscenes back in, like adding Jabba and
the puppets, right?
Right. And
didn't Yoda go from a puppet to not a puppet?
That was in the Phantom Menace.
Still a puppet, but
Still a
I
puppet,
think there
Oh
was...
my god. Okay, just to go on this tangent, I guess. So when they re-released the Phantom Menace in 2011 in 3D, they made Yoda, who had previously been a puppet, into a CGI model, because they now had the CGI model that they made for Attack of the Clones, because in Attack of the Clones, Yoda has a lightsaber fight, which you can't do with a puppet. They did not change Yoda as a puppet in the original trilogy, but they did in the Phantom Menace. So John is correct, but he's incorrect that it's about the original trilogy, and this guy obviously doesn't know that fun fact about the Phantom Menace. Oh lordy.
Some tweaks right there.
Right.
I don't remember exactly, but there was so much stuff that got added where it didn't feel like Star Wars anymore.
Like Jedi rocks, like the Jabba
like,
scene.
Well, this isn't the movie I remember watching over and over and over again.
So it's hard to look back, Yeah. I understand.
Because then you could change something that somebody fell in love with.
Right.
Like Han shooting first.
Can't mess with the past.
Change that one thing that was my favorite rock.
Exactly.
You covered that rock.
Especially me, rock. I'm like, why'd you get rid of that sticky note in the corner over there?
Yeah, the rock covering
R2.
Yeah, it's like when they replaced, replaced the Max Rebo band.
Jedi rocks. Yep.
With, with that song, it's like,
I don't think John has any idea what he's talking about.
That. Yeah, like, those are some of my favorite figures. When I was little. It's like,
I mean, Max Rebo is still in Return of the Jedi. They just have a musical number with CGI guys now. The song is called Jedi Rocks.
Effect's gonna be
right. I agree. I agree with that. Do you think we'll ever get another?
I like that section. That was my favorite part.
The Pizzaplex, like. Are you content with the Pizzaplex era being done?
Yeah, let's move on, please.
Like, do you ever think we'll see the Pizzaplex in a functional state ever again?
Maybe. I don't think you should ever cut that off.
I would say that no location is off limits.
Good answer.
Everything in the universe, everything in Scott's universe could be revisited at some point.
That's a hint.
Everything's answered.
I think in one of the older interviews, someone on the team said that they really want to make a game about about Fredbear's Family Diner. So for him to say everything could be revisited, like, ooh, maybe they're gonna revisit somewhere in the near future.
Do you see it?
Is there a world where we get Security Breach without Ruin? Or did you always know that you would need Ruin to tell more of the story?
Ruin specifically evolved.
You always knew you'd need some DLC.
Wanted to do DLC. I want to say that was another one where it was like playing with names, and then
Scott.
I think Scott.
No
I think
way.
It was Scott
yes.
that was like started calling it Ruin, and we're like, oh, that's great,
Wow.
Then it's Ruin.
That's
right?
awesome. That's awesome.
I was going to say something about this earlier, but when the animatronics are broken, they're like the shattered animatronics, and I've always wondered why they're not just the ruined animatronics. they're called Shattered in the internal files of Security Breach. So I guess that they came up with that name before the Ruin DLC was called Ruin. So that explains that to me.
A question that I really want to know the answer to, that I think is super interesting, is in Ruin, you can get Chica's voice box by beating Chica's feeding frenzy. Yeah. And then you can give that voice box.
Voice box.
It's a voice box. Now it's called a voice box officially.
It's canon. That's so funny. I love that.
We're gonna go back and change the asset.
Okay.
I can't believe we missed that one.
I know. What the heck?
It's too perfect.
That's actually wow.
It should be a voice box.
It should be a voice box.
A voice
and you can give
That's
that
amazing.
voice box back to Chica.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can like repair her and Roxy kind of.
Was there supposed to be an ending to Ruin or even Security Breach where we fixed the Glamrock animatronics?
Well, you can play it where you do. You know,
you can play Ruin.
You're helping them all, like
in Ruin.
In Ruin,
I think he means like role playing.
When you compare like Gregory to Cassie, Cassie is like she's like the healer, repairs. You know,
so there wasn't supposed to be like a different ending that got cut. It's just that's kind of how she is.
It was the payoff. I mean, it was really like the payoff for the player.
Yeah,
to be like we see, you know, we see Chica like first. She's one of the first ones that we see wandering around.
Right.
And although Cassie's like initially horrified, she takes a moment and she says, you know, oh, what happened to you? And she feels bad for her.
She's sympathetic.
Yeah. You know, they're all to be pitied. They've just been wandering around in this place for how long?
You're right. Right.
You know,
how long? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Right. For how long?
Yeah. For how long?
Yeah.
I didn't think about it like that.
So hopefully people that did it then felt like getting that payoff of Chica speaking again.
It did feel good.
Yeah.
After
Gregory,
I guess I'd relate it to the like saving the animals in Super Metroid.
I love the set dressing with the staff bots and like them like pulling ropes and like doing all that stuff.
There was one funny one. It's just it got removed, but somebody
can't tell us that
so many staff bots into one scene that it wouldn't run. You know, there was just it's giant
jiggling,
like this giant pile of staff bots.
Jiggling like Source Engine physics.
Right. Many staff bots here.
Right. It's like the sewers in Security Breach. They're everywhere.
They are.
They're like shish kebabbed.
Yeah.
And there's
like bits of them. And this one was like, oh no, the full bottle out there over and over and over again to the point where it's like, oh no, come on.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, too many. It was funny.
Another big question that I wanted to ask. The mixes machine in Ruin. I'm not going to ask like, what does mixes stand for? Because I know that's a big secret. But I've noticed
that's actually interesting. I love this. The fact that we haven't figured out what mixes stands for yet is incredible. I am shocked that somebody like John hasn't figured that out. One of the things I love about mixes, right? MXES. The X could stand for the letter X, right? It's an acronym for X. It could be an EX, you know, exceptional. It could mean cross. So, you know, whatever M stands for, cross plus times whatever ES. The fact that it hasn't been figured out yet is incredible to me, and I really hope that we figure it out before it's explained to us, because that would just be like a huge win for the community.
It looks a lot like the
Whopper.
The Whopper machine from the 1983 movie War Games.
Yeah.
Was this intentional? And how often when creating your games do you reference back to like movies from your past?
You know, there's always good reference in other movies and television or images of the time periods that you're looking at. That is deliberately supposed to be an older machine. So the Whopper being like a good example.
Okay, so it's from like 1983, haha.
Right.
But it's old.
Interesting.
Computers were like this big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh God, I feel like that was a big drop.
It's like this is not that's not a modern computer.
No, it's not.
Right? The model just is not a modern computer.
No, it's not.
Right.
Okay, so I wonder if it's from the 80s, specifically 83.
And we'll leave that question there. I love that. Yeah.
I give it 2 days before John has a video out about that.
When I was in high school, I worked in concession. I worked in movie theater. And so in between threading films,
movie theater concessionist, that's me.
Then here's the rush. This is how old I am during the release of Jurassic Park, for example.
Oh wow, okay.
Just crowds and crowds, and just doing.
I love this, man.
Just doing concessions and trying to hit all the orders right, and people coming up with the dumbest requests.
Yeah.
And then your shoes when you get home smelling like butter. and leaving them outside because they just reek. It's like they smell like, artificial butter, and it's just food everywhere. And
that's incredible. I love that.
The cage
I love that
behind,
so much.
and all the storage and the cups and everything. And that stuff really, really still speaks to me.
Oh, for sure.
Unless you've done it.
Oh, yeah.
And you're working in service.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
It's hard. It can be really hard.
Have you, John? Have you been a movie theater concessionist?
Yeah. And I feel like with the staff bots are a great example of, like, those customers of that, like, why aren't you going faster?
Yeah.
I've been waiting all day.
I have my film starting.
Exactly.
It's like, I mean, my show's starting.
Exactly.
It's like, hurry up.
Exactly.
The worst part is when they're like, oh my God, my film's starting, but really the trailers are starting, and you know that, but they don't know that, and it's really annoying. Oh my God, I understand. I feel you, Jason.
Like being able to go inside Princess Quest was unreal. I think everyone can agree that like that was a crazy moment. What was it like conceptualizing that and then getting in the headset for the first time and experiencing it?
The whole concept, and I remember when I was kind of pitching it internally, and people were like, "What?" I was like,
"Really?
No, just imagine, just imagine if it's something you've never seen in VR. Like, what's the thing we want to see is there's some unresolved issues with Princess Quest.
Yes,
like we beat the game.
Yes,
but there's more, and then actually going into first person and seeing the princess there walking around as like a 2D sprite,
and it's something that Nintendo will never do with Zelda.
You see yourself
in
the room,
and you see yourself, and it's like
that's so cool.
That being a huge moment for
just from like a gameplay narrative experience.
So was that
playing the arcade cabinet and then you're real, right? And then you get like step away from the cabinet and you're actually playing the game in VR.
It was there early. It was there early. It's Jenny made this image of a giant glitch trap in this swirly purple space.
Really?
With Vanny
giant glitch
in
trap.
its hand. Ooh. This little tiny Vanny.
Yeah.
And it was.
But they didn't help on it too. It's the opposite. It's a giant Vanny with a glitch trap, right?
Scale in VR is so amazing.
Oh my gosh!
We always wanted to do
DJ Music Man is a great example.
Yeah,
of that.
right.
Yeah.
We always wanted to do. We're in this glitch world space, and then we're in the palm of glitch trap.
That is cool.
and there's like, what is this?
And then giant Vanny.
Really early on. And it was when we had started Security Breach. We're like, it'd be so cool to do that. And so I had that in my head for, when we were talking about endings and resolutions for, instead of having a giant Vanny.
Yeah.
Turning around and being, this is, the end of Glitch Trap.
Yeah. So
it is the end. Yes.
Squished.
Confirmation. Yes, that's probably the only lore thing we'll ever get fully confirmed like this. Incredible. Love that. Thank you for saying that. Love it. Love it. That makes this whole thing worthwhile. Thank you, John. I love you.
The old man. I'll just call him the old man.
Yeah.
At the
old
beginning.
Man consequences.
His dialogue has some...
I'm pretty sure that in the files his name is OMC for Old Man Consequences. So I'm wondering if that's what he's going to ask.
Grammatical errors.
Yes.
Is that on purpose?
That's a Zelda reference.
Is it more of an inside joke?
It's a Zelda reference.
Exactly the wording that I wanted to use.
Interesting.
Some of that.
It's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
To,
Dodongo just like smoke.
What era? What era are certain things from?
It's a secret to everybody.
NES games in like poor translations. You play the original Zelda?
No.
Oh,
bruh.
The phrase. You walk into a room and there's an old man with a sword.
Yeah, it's dangerous to go alone. Take
Master
this.
Using it, and you can have this. And it's like, what? It's like, wait, what?
Oh
it's like,
my gosh.
Oh, I have to get to a certain level. I've got to get enough hearts, and then he'll give me the new sword.
Yeah, you have to increase your heart container.
No idea what it's talking about.
Yeah.
The secret is in the Eye of Goma. It's like, what in the world are you talking about?
And so that's like a callback, like riffing on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Princess Quest is so clearly Zelda,
The broken English translations of like early NES games.
Yeah,
I am error.
That's a satisfying answer. I think that's really funny.
Those were good. And that's how I felt that video game character would speak.
Right.
Yeah, again, another 1980s. Okay, so he's referring this to like NES games, right? So in Scott's FNAF games, a lot of the mini games were based on Atari 2600 style games. Now he's talking about NES games. The NES coming out in like 1985 in America. Zelda specifically, I think it was 86 in America. The original Mario was 85. Zelda was 86. So I'm wondering if this is some sort of implication of the time period in which it was made, right? He said that computer reference was 83. But if Princess Quest is overtly a Zelda reference, which it is, and I went over how the sound effects are the same in my really long FNAF video, but I wonder if that's now saying that it's taking place in at least 1986, which would be post-MCI, whereas the arcade games, the Atari games, could have possibly been before that because they're older. Or if he missed the reference, if he's missing that, like, Chuck E. Cheese's and Atari were founded by the same guy and that there's an inherent reference there. Also, him calling the NES the NES, don't like that. It's like if you call Mario Mario, we can't be friends.
How do you know when a project is done? Is it the deadlines that usually stop you?
The project is never done.
Are you like typically satisfied?
No, like your manager tells you you're done working on it.
That's a funny one. I think that's one of those general like questions about artists.
Yes.
In any type of art.
I feel like it's a mix of like feeling content with it, but also like we have a deadline. We have to have this game come out eventually. That's how I feel about my videos.
And then, you hear the fans.
Oh, yeah.
Like, where is this? Where is this? Where is this?
Yeah, they tell you what you did wrong.
It's like, there's something coming. There's something coming. We can't talk about it.
Really?
There's a surprise coming. The lightning in a bottle.
I think John is sitting there like, are they going to announce their next game to me live right now? Yes. I think that's what he's hoping for.
Does audience feedback ever persuade you to do differently, or do you?
Did you make up the mimic? Was the mimic a retcon?
I'll answer one outside of story.
Bruh, just tell.
Right. Audience feedback from Help Wanted 1. It's too scary.
Really?
It's too scary. This is too intense. This is too
I wonder if that made Security Breach less scary.
Like, we would see it and
that's why they made it less
scary.
We
had so much fun with like, hey, put your mom in the headset and show your dad and show your friends and oh my god, everybody's freaking out. We had this one woman that was a teacher at an art school. She's like, none of this is scary. Jump scares don't scare me.
Oh.
And then she did the
jump scares in VR
are
repair.
Different.
Different.
And when the roaches came out, she was like, oh my god, no. It's like,
that's like what MatPat
that
did.
was the thing that got her.
Yeah,
right?
I know that's something that MatPat, like MatPat,
yeah,
like the roaches freaked him out.
Yeah,
right? It's weird because that doesn't
Love
affect
you, John.
me. I think it's some sort of like phobia, maybe.
Yeah, people have reactions to different things.
Right.
It's just not a jump scare, right? Okay, so I haven't paused this in a while. I think that one of the reasons that is particularly scary is because in these games, a jump scare means you died, right? So there's a jump scare, but then there's the release of you going like, ha ha, I died in a video game, now I gotta start the level over. But with that kind of jump scare, where something's coming at you, but you didn't lose, and you have to keep playing, and you have to keep your wits about you and not freak out and fight that instinct and the stress and just keep going, that's spooky. That's why the Foxy jump scare in FNAF 3 is probably the scariest in the series for me, because like you have to keep playing, right? Like it's not actually over.
Like, how do you find a balance between an intended lore detail and something that's just there as like a fun Easter egg?
So if somebody adds a thing in the corner somewhere, we'll look at and review, walk around the locations, fly around, clip through the walls and everything, and look at things. We're like, oh, this over here, that sends the wrong message.
So, unless you don't catch
might
it.
Put something in and be like, oh, I thought it'd be cool if, and we're like, hold on.
Right.
No, that can't
it could be interpreted
here.
Some way different way. Yes.
And we really want to avoid those like misleads.
Doesn't mean you always catch it though.
Yeah. I love watching the YouTubers. I read the Reddits and I love people's theories. I love their thoughts. I love their drawings. I love everything everybody's doing.
Right.
It's fantastic.
It's crazy.
It's such an amazing community. I would suggest that people that might get incensed or a little bit adamant about their point of view, that this is the only correct answer. It has to be this. And then they push other people down.
The amount of comments
so opinionated
where people say things like this, like you're wrong because this is true, like this interpretation of the theory, is sad. And I think it is something specific about this fandom that for whatever reason, it brings out vitriol. I have an entire channel that arguably has one of the most vitriolic fan bases on the entire internet, and the amount of anger and vitriol, I just keep saying the word vitriol, the amount of vitriol in the comments of my FNAF videos is greater than the amount of vitriol in the comments of my Chris Chan videos. That should tell you something.
Malleable. They need to be a little bit more open to other people's theories.
For sure.
I think you're really good at that. I do. I think you're really, really good at that.
Thanks.
I
did not tell him to say any of this, by the way. He's saying it on his own.
Yeah, some of John's videos are my favorite because he goes on these really weird, like tangents and out there theories.
I'm watching it, I can't comment.
And that's what I love. I love the deconstruction of things that we assume.
Is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that a fact? How sure are you about that? Right.
It's
You know, it's just occasionally you can get some people that are like, no, I'm absolutely 1,000% sure.
Yeah.
And you're never going to convince me of anything else. It's like, enjoy.
Right.
You know, enjoy it.
Right.
Enjoy your hobbies.
It's fun to theorize.
Yeah.
Like, that's basically it.
Yeah. Even if there's a theory that's like super like
out
nuts.
there. Yeah.
And you're like, but that was fun.
Have you ever watched any FNAF speedrunners? And do you ever use like
oh lordy,
do you ever use like the speedrunners videos to figure out, oh, that bug needs to be fixed and that bug needs to be fixed?
Oh,
I hope not.
Interesting.
Oh yeah. When Security Breach came out, and then it was like, oh, wait, what? They can do that? No. Oh, wait, they can get up in a corner? There's a seam that's just like a pixel off, and somebody hits at the right angle. And then, QA looks through, and the guys are finding stuff, and they're like, oh, we saw this video. We'll look into it.
Oh, wow.
And we'll find out what happened there or whatever.
Is there any part of you that just leaves some of the bugs in for the speedrunners? Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because there's some times where we'll see something, we're like, you know what? A like normal player isn't going to run into this game-breaking spot.
Exactly.
And the people that are doing the speedruns and having fun with it and trying to find other things.
Including me. I did a lot of speedrunning back in the day of Security Breach, and it's super fun.
And we talked about that. We're like...
The phrase back in the day of Security Breach just made me feel so old.
If it's something that like a person could accidentally fall out of the world,
right.
And it's like, oh, you know what? If somebody does this exact combination, then the game's broken for them. We don't want that.
Yeah. How do you feel about fans digging through the game files? Are you comfortable with that?
When I was at Telltale, people were digging through the files.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Finding omitted voice lines. And it's just these little like treats for people that are digging around and finding interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I forgot the name of it, but like one of the craziest, most egregious ones is there was a game that got released, like a AAA title, and there was a folder that got left in where somebody had copied the entire South Park movie.
Say South Park? No, so it was Tiger Woods PGA Tour for the PS1 in the 90s had the short that then went on to inspire South Park, was on the Tiger Woods PS1 game, and if you put the PS1 disc into a computer, you could access it, but you couldn't access it if you just put it in a regular PS1.
Shipped with the game.
No way.
Yeah.
It was a massive issue.
Whoa,
big recall thing.
You know what? There was a file somewhere, and it ended up in the build, and people didn't spot it, and they didn't pull it out because there's so much material.
The theory is that they in order to make like pirating the game harder, they wanted to put more data on the disc, and so they're like, let's just put in this random video file that will be completely inaccessible anyway.
Wild.
And then you send it out to the world, and somebody finds it. It's like,
wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
We have a good number, we've got like 90 people, and we're not letting anyone go.
90? Which means you made Security Breach with 12?
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
we should be on like Security Breach 7 at this point then.
Things. Do you have anything planned for the FNAF 10th anniversary maybe? Or just going to be celebrating at home?
Carrot cake.
Carrot cake.
Carrot cake.
Interesting.
Carrot cake.
Interesting.
That's Cassie's favorite cake.
That is Cassie's favorite cake.
Oh, I wonder if that's the project title for the next game.
FNAF 10th anniversary.
Yes.
Interesting.
I'll send one to Scott.
Wait, what?
I'll send one to Scott.
Oh,
too.
you'll send one to Scott.
Send one to Scott too.
Interesting.
I don't know if Scott likes carrot cake.
I'm sure he does.
I'm gonna ask him.
Scott, comment down below.
Do you like
carrot cake?
Cake?
I wonder if like the next game is codenamed Carrot Cake, and if not, if this is just a little joke, I wonder if like we should start calling, like the community should start calling whatever the next game, Security Breach 2 or Carnival game, right? If we just start calling it Carrot Cake, because that would make a lot of sense as like the project title.
What's your favorite cake?
1 minute left. Oh my God.
birthday.
I've been recording this for two hours.
Scott's big birthday. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I know, it's so cool.
It's
like,
it's wild.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
wild. Thank you so much for being here. Like this means the world to me, and I hope that didn't let
you guys,
any
wait, hold
of
on.
you down.
Do you guys think there's going to be a bunny animatronic, though? Carrot cake? Bunny? William Afton?
I hope that I did fine. I've never done something like this before, so please be nice to me. But yeah, this was
be nice
so
to John,
much
guys.
fun.
I might have my constructive criticism about his interview style, but
Chill. But it's like I'm talking to a friend, you know. It's very...
I feel like I'm talking to a friend. So.
I love Jason. He's such a cool guy.
But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and this was a dream come true. So make sure to subscribe. Go get Help Wanted 2 on Oculus.
Yeah, sub to John.
MetaQuest down below.
Yes.
And yeah, that's about it. Woo!
Yes.
Woo! We're done.
Excellent.
That was incredible. I love that. And again, I'm mostly just glad that somebody in the community was able to interview someone in the industry like that. He said that he interviewed with Doggo before. That's not something I was aware of, and I'm not sure what form that interview took. It may have been like a Zoom call or something. So not as conversational, right? Like if you're not in the same room with someone, the interview is not going to go the same. This is amazing. Obviously, I cut out a lot of it, and so I hope that if you want to go get all your questions answered, you go and you watch John's full video. I definitely plan on reacting to other people's videos, like in general, like this in the future. The one people keep asking me to do, the dual process theory, you know, Golden Freddy, we solved FNAF video. Not going to do that one, partially because it's 2 hours long, and then partially because they are so new to the community that for me to like cannibalize their views would not be cool. Like I wouldn't want someone to watch my video and then not watch theirs. So I guess I'll just do what I can and shout them out and be like, go watch Dual Process theory video, go watch John FNAF, go watch everybody. I saw a comment on one of MatPat's most recent videos and is like, bro, why haven't you started reacting to Impulse 737 yet? I'm like, yes dude, justice for my boy Evan. Obviously, we got, I got my Ride Host and ID's Fantasy plushies back there. Everyone in the community. Hyperdroid, Ozone, just like Cyrus Walks, all of them. Watch all of them. If you like one of them, you're going to like the rest of them. It's very good having a lot of different opinions and viewpoints. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I hope that you look forward to seeing things like this in the future. I hope John gets to do more stuff like this in the future. And I hope that whatever carrot cake is, we find out about it soon. Thank you for watching. Be sure to be nice to each other in the comments. Consider supporting the creators you admire. Never lose sight of the things that are most important to you. And remember that Freddy's stands for friendly, respectful engagement, discussion, and discourse yields success.